Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to our monthly forum on transportation this month. We're so excited that you're here. We're just going to wait a minute or two until all the participants can come in. It takes a little bit of time for everybody to enter into the webinar. We want to just welcome you all here today. We're so happy that people are taking the time to learn more about issues for transportation for older adults in Austin. And like I said, we're just going to wait for a minute or two for other people to pop in. We are here on this, well, is it a nice day? I think it is kind of a nice day. It warmed up a little bit, so it's not so cold, but welcome, welcome. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Cindy Cummings. I am a volunteer with Austin Up. We are so happy to have you here on our monthly webinar series that we've been doing, our forums. We've been highlighting different subjects each month on the forums, and this month it's going to be on transportation. But first, let me tell you a little bit about Austin Up. And excuse me while I read. Austin Up our vision is to create a region that responds to aging as a dynamic rather than a stagnant force. We are all aging all the time, and we want to make Central Texas a better place that supports each of us as we age. So that is Austin Up's vision. And what we have been doing for the past, since 2014 is working with nonprofits, businesses, and other government agencies to try to make Austin an age-friendly city. And one of our goals is to help educate people on the progress that we've made towards that end. And that's how we came about to do the forum series. We're really happy to have you all here today. We do have a new person that we'd like to introduce you to, and she has just become involved with Austin Up. Denise, I'm going to have you come on in. Let me see if I can figure all this out. Denise is going to come in. Denise Brooks is our newest hire, and we're so excited to have her here. Hey, Denise, how are you? You are on mute. You are on mute. If you want to unmute just to say hey.
So, hi, everyone. Technology.
You are not... Hey, is that the 360 bridge or is that the San Francisco bridge there?
You know what? It can be whatever bridge you want, but I think it's
okay.
San Francisco.
Okay. I know you're definitely not in San Francisco. You are in Austin, and
I am in Austin.
You have spent many, many years in Austin. You have worked with an amazing nonprofit for many, many years, and we were able to meet you through our process of looking for our new outreach and fund development manager, and we selected you and you selected us, and we are beyond thrilled that you are here. So we just wanted to say hey to you, and for our constituents, for our older adults, for nonprofits and businesses, you're going to be seeing Denise out. She's going to be out meeting people, and so don't be surprised to get a call from her or a call from her to meet for a coffee, just to find out what your needs and how we might be able to assist in the future. So thank you, Denise. We're so excited to have you on board, and we look forward to working with you for many, many years.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, so we're going to... I muted myself. That's not going to work, is it? Denise, if you'll go ahead and stop your video, I think you might be able to do it a little bit. I kind of feel like I'm a DJ up here, you know, trying to figure things out. And so that worked out great. So Austin Up has been holding a series of free monthly sessions all through 2021. And it's the result of the Age-Friendly Austin Plan. The subjects were all of the important pillars to make Austin an age-friendly city. And so what we've done is we've gone back out to nonprofits and to businesses and asked them to come back in and to report on what has transpired since the beginning of the plan and some of their ideas for the future. So we're really excited today to be talking about transportation. Next month, we're going to be talking about social inclusion. And we have an amazing panelist, 2 different panels that we're going to have talking on that. One of the things that we've learned through COVID is how social isolation can really impact older adults and how important it is for them to have social activities. And people got really creative during COVID about different ways that they can have activities. And one is putting computers and technology in their hands. So that's going to be one of our panelists. The other is Amy Temperley, and many of you know her. And she's done so much for our older adults in providing activities, and many of the activities are inexpensive or free. And they have gone so far as to make a calendar for older adults. And that's for the whole city of Austin. And so if you're a nonprofit or a business or a government entity, you can submit your activities for older adults on their calendar. So that's going to be in December, and that is going to actually be on December 9th, and that is called Social Participation. We also are going to have an Aging and Innovation Summit, and it's going to be December 7th. And super excited about our primary speaker for this event. She's a world-renowned speaker, and her topic is going to be on trends and opportunities in the longevity economy. And one of the things that's really important is for businesses and nonprofits and government agencies to understand the importance of thinking about innovative products for older adults, both so that they can remain in their home or for social reasons and different things like that. So she actually lives in Israel. I had the opportunity to speak with her, and she has some great ideas, very positive, and ways for people to be able to help getting innovative products out quicker. And just to also talk about the opportunity that there is. So she's going to be our main speaker. She's our keynote. Next, we're going to talk about emergency preparedness and, well, the crisis, right? We had a huge crisis. And so now we're trying to do preparation for in the future. We know that it's probably going to happen in the future. There's probably not a way that we're going to solve how that gets solved. I mean, we're just, common consumers, so we probably can't solve the problem, but we do have opportunities to understand better how you can be better prepared. And so we're going to have a panel speaking on that. Our other panel is going to be talking about technology and the digital divide. There's a huge digital divide, not only with people, it has to do mostly with people who can't afford technology. And so we're going to talk at length about technology and how people got technology into older adults' hands. And now we have some new issues, and some of those issues have to do with training and how do we provide the proper kind of training for older adults. It's great that they've got this technology, but now how do they use it? So that's going to be one of our panels. And then our last panel, super excited about this, it's going to be all the products and services, new things that have come about. And so we're going to have a panel of people talking about new products that are coming to the market or on the market. We hope to have some winners of there's lots of different competitions that you can be in for innovative products, and we hope to have some of those winners be on and talk about that too. In addition, we also have our job forums. Our job forums are going to continue. They're going to be in December. We've got one on December 2nd, and we have one on December 15th. The one on December 2nd is going to be ACC. They've been a huge supporter of Austin Up, and Katie, she's a supervisor coach for today's jobs programs with ACC. She's doing a custom presentation for us, and she's going to talk about where the jobs are, where you can find a job. She's going to talk about the skills that you'd need for those jobs, and then talk about the gaps that you might have and how you can get the training that you need to be able to get those jobs. So that's going to be December 2nd. Next, we have Miles Wallace, December 15th. And he has been a super supporter of our whole jobs program. Thank you to Miles and his company. And he's going to be talking on job seeking Sherlock, finding the hidden jobs. So Miles, again, thank you for your support in the past, and we're excited to have him be our speaker on December 15th. So I think that kind of lines it up for what's coming up in the future. We do want to have a special thanks today for our sponsor. Our sponsor is United Healthcare, and our representative was unable to be here today to talk a little bit about United Healthcare. We hope to have him on another time so we can talk a little bit more about the programs and services that they offer for older adults. But we want to thank you sincerely for being our corporate adopter for this session. In addition, AARP and City of Austin have been huge supporters of this forum series. We've only got 2 more. We've been doing them all year, and we just want to give a special shout out to them too. Let's see. So without further ado, we're going to introduce our panelist. Let me just give you a kind of a lay of the land for today. So the way that we're going to be running this particular meeting is we're going to have our first speaker come on. Her name is Tina Porter. She's going to have a PowerPoint presentation, and then we're going to bring in Gretchen. And Gretchen is the executive director for Chariot, formerly Driver Senior, Central Texas. And we have prepared questions that we're going to ask them. Then what we're going to do is we would like your questions. We'd like for you to put your questions down the question and answer area, or you can put them in the chat area. So those are the 2 areas that you can put the questions in. And without further ado, Tina, I'd like for you to come on in and I will briefly introduce you. So hey, Tina, I think I can hear you, but I can't see you. So if you want to go ahead and start your video so that we can see your face too. And
I'm trying to pull up my face. I'm sorry, I'm having some
No worries.
difficulties here. Can you see my PowerPoint?
We can see your PowerPoint, but I want to go through a little brief introduction. And if you don't mind coming on the video, then everybody can see you. There you are.
There
Hey,
Hi.
Tina, you
Hello,
did
hello.
it. We were just talking about technology and how it can be a challenge, but it's also been a blessing through this
That's
time
right,
period
that's
too,
right.
because yeah. So Tina, let me just do a brief introduction. So Tina has a 10-year tenure with Capital Metro Transportation Authority, where she's very passionate about her job. In her current role, she's been employed for the last 5 years as a trip planning specialist for the Office of Mobility Management. Prior to that, Tina served 5 years as a customer service representative, number 3, with Capital Metro's Metro Access Department. Tina's primary responsibility include aiding customers with travel requirements that cross jurisdiction boundaries, as well as agency and service provider boundaries, and assisting seniors and disabled individuals with connections to transit options tailored to their specific needs. Ooh, hold on. I'm so sorry. I'm having a coughing attack. Go ahead and go, Tina.
All right, well, no problem
Yes,
at all.
thank you.
Thank you all for having me here today to be able to share some information about the Office of Mobility Management and how Capital Metro assists our senior community. So just to give a little bit of information about the Office of Mobility Management, which was started back in 2013, and as with Capital Metro and the Capital Area Rural Transportation System, better known as CARTS, created the Office of Mobility Management with the purpose of increasing connectivity among all transportation providers in the region and creating a seamless network for people who need transportation. Sorry about that. The Office of Mobility Management focuses on closing gaps in the service area by working with local jurisdictions, coordinating with service providers, and implementing new transportation tools in 10 counties. And then we also have the trip planning specialist. As the trip planning specialist, some of those roles are to answer calls from the Capital Metro Go line, from the CARTS Ride line, as well as the Office of Mobility Management to provide trips and provide trip planning information, assist customers over the telephone and in person if requested. I also evaluate and assist customers in selecting the best provider, routes, and schedules. Also provide aid to customers with travel requirements that cross jurisdictional boundaries or agencies and service providers. So I do want to kind of give a little example about how that may work. So the example would be, I had a senior who called that lives in Pflugerville, and she was recently approved for Metro Access here in Austin. So the way I was able to help her was, first of all, I was able to get her information to see exactly where she lived. Once I had that information and used our pickup on demand services for Pflugerville, it was determined that her home address was actually inside of the zone for pickup. So I was able to provide her with information on how to use that pickup service, even from her home address, to be taken over to our Capital Metro's Park and Ride at Tech Ridge, where she would have a pre-scheduled ride with Metro Access that would pick her up from there and take her to wherever it is she needed to go for her medical appointments here within Austin. And then, of course, that same information was given back to her of how to return home from that trip as well. Some other ways that Capital Metro assist our senior population is by offering a reduced fare ID program. The reduced fare ID card enables eligible riders to receive a half price fare of 60 cents. The card costs $3 and is good for 2 years. And the seniors that are eligible are those that are 65 and older, Medicare card holders, active duty military personnel, and riders with disabilities. The Reduced Fare ID program have several ways that one can obtain that actual application. It can be picked up at the transit store, which is downtown here in Austin, located at 209 West 9th Street. They can also call the number listed and request an application to be mailed. They can also download the application from one of the following locations. For riders with disabilities and Medicare card holders, they can go online and visit www.capmetro.org/reduced fare ID. All applications must be returned in person and not mailed back. Accessible application forms and Spanish version are also available upon request by calling the number listed, or they can send an email to requestformailouts@capmetro.org. And they also do require a valid government issued ID, a Texas photo ID, or a driver's license is needed. Along with our reduced fare program, I also offer reduced fare ID during special events when I go to do outreach with our pickup on demand team in our newly innovated pickup zones. We normally have some senior living communities there. So I'll pair up with that particular pair up with the pickup on demand team. We'll go ahead and do outreach. And at that time, I will offer those residents that are 65 and older to be able to sign up for the reduced fare at that time. And the other thing that Capital Metro does to work with our senior community is that we have an updated Greater Austin Transportation Services and Senior Ride Guide. The Ride Guide comes in English and in Spanish. We also have it online on the Office of Mobility Management website at mytexasride.com. And for anyone else that would like to have hard copies, can contact me personally at my listed phone number, 512-369-6047, or email me at tina.porter@capmetro.org. And 2910 East 5th Street is my work location, where you can come and meet with me to pick up those ride guides. And that's it. You're on mute.
You'd think I would learn that after all these months of doing this. Ever since the pandemic, I've been doing this. I guess we're humans. Well, Tina, the ride guide is really something that you have been putting out every year. For how long have you been doing a ride guide?
This is the second one, so about every 2 years.
About every 2 years.
The information, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and they are free. And
Yes.
so if you want to even have a stack of them and you could take them maybe to your church or senior living communities and places like that, that works?
That
If
is
people want to take
correct.
it-
That is correct.
Right.
And I also personally deliver the ride guides to many of the senior living locations here around Austin. So I do get them out into the community as well.
That was one of my questions, Tina, is I live in the outskirts. So I live in Lakeway. So we're not, I mean, I do have Austin as my street address, but where do you actually do the services that you provide? What areas do you service?
Well, it's in Austin, but of course I go wherever. You know, we have services in Leander, Manor, any of those places, anywhere that asks for the ride guides. You know, there's not an issue of getting those out into the hands of the community. I can mail out large quantities as well, or as well as anyone that would like to meet up with me to pick up those guides in person. That can be arranged as well.
If you are somebody who's trying to figure out a ride, which it sounds like that's what you do, right? You actually help people when they're trying to figure out how to get from here to there. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So if let's say, for example, I live in Lakeway, can you help me in Lakeway, or do you only help people who are in the city of Austin?
No, I help wherever anyone call. The options that I give out are for Texas, is for Austin and surrounding counties. So it's not just for Austin. Now, when I do speak with individuals over the phone, there is some general information that I ask for, of course, the name, address, destination address, the age, which is very important, and whether they use mobility devices. The reason I asked for age is because I'm for sure many of you all know that all transportation providers do not assist all ages. So the ones that I primarily work with assist those that are 60 and older. So
Okay.
there are certain options that I give out based on age. And then some may not have wheelchair accessible vehicles. So that's another reason why I would ask if they use any type of mobility devices so that I can determine which provider would be the best fit for that individual.
So it sounds like you're not just providing solutions that the city has, you're actually connecting people to other resources where there's gaps that the city doesn't go to, or they don't have the proper vehicle or things like that. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes, ma'am.
Well, that is an awesome service, because I know there can be a lot of frustration, particularly when somebody makes a move into a new area and they're unfamiliar with, how to get around. So I'm sure once they figure out that first ride or two, it's probably not as difficult, but it's tough. Even Pflugerville, I'm sure, was a challenge trying to figure out how to get them to hither and there.
It was. But good thing about Pflugerville is that Capital Metro implemented that pickup on demand. And although it services a certain zone, if they're not too far from the zone, figure out that's within the zone that they can get. They can call the pickup services and be taken over to Tech Ridge if they're trying to come into Austin. So that's a way
Okay.
to connect into Austin. And then whether they need Metro access or they're just trying to connect to our fixed route services, that's the connecting place for that to happen.
Okay. Is this something that they can do online? Could you go online and figure out your route, or is it better to talk to a specialist to get the routes
You
figured out?
can go online and look at that information, but if they're trying to figure out bus routes and things like that, it would be best to contact our Go line directly, and they can assist them with the times and where they're leaving from and how to connect to all the routes that they're needing to use.
I think that it's confusing, when you first go there. So it's probably nice to talk to a specialist, figure out your special routes, and then figure out the other ones, I guess, on your own once you get through that. There is some questions. Let me go ahead. One of them, hey, you can register for the ATX Aging and Innovation Summit by visiting. We have the website aginginnovationsummit.com. So it's pretty easy. So you can go there to register. So we have somebody else who's saying, good to hear you are signing folks up for the Fair Pass when you got to the senior communities. Turning in an application for senior fare in person to the downtown location is a burden for many seniors. Before the pandemic, Cap Metro had started to visit public libraries on a rotating basis to help seniors apply for the reduced fare card. There was something requested by the commission. This was something requested by the Commission on Seniors. That's really awesome. I hope as things return to normal, Cap Metro will again let me see the rest of this. Find more innovative ways to get those fare cards out. Yeah, so is that something that you've heard about as an issue before, Tina? And have you talked about potential solutions, and what are they?
I have heard about that. As a matter of fact, say those that live in Leander, when we started out with Leander pickup, I did go along with the pickup team and signed up many seniors up in Leander to be able to use the reduced fare program up there. So when it came time for them to renew, we're not up there. So what I have done in the past is, get with the pickup team. They may want to go back out and do some outreach, and I'll tag along and let those seniors know, yeah, I'll be in the area if you all want to come out and, renew your reduced fare ID points. Also, a good thing that Capital Metro has just implemented, and I want to say it was this month. I don't have a lot of information on it, but they have now started a online where you can sign up for reduced fare. You would be downloading your own picture. Once they get that information, they receive the $3. At some point, they will go ahead and send over your ID. Now, that is great for those that are technology savvy. Not all seniors are able to do that or have help to help them be able to maneuver through online or use their phone or cell phones or computers to do that. So, if they can get down to the transit store to renew or just to sign up, that option is still there, as well as I still go out along with some of the pickup teams and sign up individuals in person.
How long is the discount card good for? Is it a calendar year, or how does it work? You apply each?
It's good for 2 years.
It's good for 2 years. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So question here, do you assist the Elgin area as well?
I do assist the Elgin area because we have, well, let me take that back. We do have a fixed route bus that comes into Austin West, Elgin and Manor fixed route. It's the 990. But if there are a senior center community in Elgin and they are interested in getting the reduced fare ID cards, we have no issue of getting the team together, going down there, doing an outreach and a little event, get them signed up and talk about some of our services. So that option is there. All they need to do is give us a call. We can definitely make that happen.
So Tina, it sounds like you do outreach. So you personally will go to a senior center or a church or someplace like that if they have a high concentration of seniors that might want to sign up for a card like that?
Right now, I do this particularly through outreach with pickup on demand. I started doing the reduced fare as an assistant to someone about 3 years ago. And that person has since then moved on to bigger and better things within the company. So that individual, he used to do a lot of organizations such as AWRP, Conley Guerrero centers, anywhere where they had large senior functions, they would get with him and they would also go out and do a transit adventure with the seniors. Now, I do know that that does still happen, but it's through our customer experience team. So if there is someone that is interested in having something like that done, they can contact our customer experience team here at Cap Metro. They will go ahead and organize that event, and I'll tag along with them and offer the reduced fare.
Excellent. Okay, we do have a question here. It says, is this a service that a for-profit transportation, non-emergency medical transportation becomes certified to provide the transportation? Not sure I quite understand that. Is this a service that a for-profit transportation, a non-emergency medical transportation, becomes certified to provide the, I don't understand. I'm so sorry. Do you understand the question?
Well, and I may be wrong, but I do refer my clients, or the callers that reach out to me, to non-emergency medical transportation providers. They are a cost. They have a fee for their services. So they're not contracted through Capital Metro. This is just a verbal agreement. A lot of times I speak with individuals on the phone and they'll tell me, I've used this particular company. They were awesome. I'll get that information and I'll call them up and see what all they offer, who they cater to. You have wheelchair accessible vehicles, and do you mind if I share your information with the senior community? And when they tell me yes, then I start using their information to give out for some of those individuals that call me that are looking for transportation. So I'm not sure.
You're like, yeah, you're like the transportation guru for the city of Austin. I mean, man, this is awesome.
I also work with Metro Access clients as well. Having that 5 years of experience with Metro Access, and also with a lot of Metro Access clients moving outside of the Austin area. Now they're looking for transportation to get into Austin for their doctor's appointments and things like that. So I speak with them. I speak with new Metro Access clients that have never used the service before, so I'm able to explain to them how it works. If they have full eligibility or conditional eligibility, how to set your rides up, how not to get a no-show. So I go over all of that information with those new Metro Access clients. So I do help quite a bit of people.
I'm embarrassed to say I don't know what Metro Access is. What does that mean?
Metro Access is Capital Metro's paratransit service. It is called Metro Access. It's our paratransit services here in Austin.
Very good. Trying to get all the lingo down. I'm probably not the only one who would have that question. It does look like we have another question. It says, oh, that's what she was asking about. Thank you. And she's asking if she can send her info in. So we'll get that information. We'll share that with you later, Tina.
Okay.
Here's a great question. Then we're just going to take this one last question, then we're going to bring Gretchen in. But is there a guaranteed or not to exceed time arranged by the specialist, or does the senior or the caregiver need to make the appropriate arrangements with the service, like a medical center, if the ride is longer than the route was committed to be?
Well, like I said, the providers that I refer out to, they're not contracted by Capital Metro. So
Okay.
just like any other and I hope I'm answering this correctly, just as any other transportation provider, they require a 2 to 3 day notification, so they can get them scheduled in. And then they would make that arrangement with that provider of how to come back for them, what time to come back for them, that type of information. So I hope I've answered that. If
I
that's
think you did.
what
Yeah. It's kind of out of your control. You're referring, and then whatever the rules are for whomever you're referring to, it's their rules. And so
that is
that's the
correct.
way it is.
Yes.
Well, Tina, would you mind go ahead and having your PowerPoint go away? And then I'm going to ask Gretchen to come in, if I can figure all this out. Gretchen, we're going to have you unmute and start your video. There you are. Hey, Gretchen. I'm going to read a short, welcome. I'm going to read a short bio of you, and then we're going to go through some of the questions that we have. So this is our bio for Gretchen. She's the executive director for Chariot, and Chariot was formerly Drivus Senior Central Texas. And I've known Gretchen for, gosh, I guess this entire year we've worked together. I happen to sit on the board of Chariot also. And so I've had lots of opportunity to work with this particular organization. We felt that her perspective would be really good because she has a lot of knowledge about the transportation needs of older adults. So Gretchen is a veteran of the nonprofit world. Before taking on the executive director position at Chariot, she served the Austin community in a variety of positions, including executive director for recording for the blind and dyslexic, now Learning Ally, the Women's Advocacy Program, the Mother's Milk Bank, and College for All Texas Foundations, as well as director of development and marketing for the Austin Children's Museum, the Tinkery. Most recently, she spent over 10 years as a nonprofit management consultant and an interim executive director for various nonprofits. She received her bachelor's in sociology from Newcomb College at Tulane University and her MPA from the LPJ. Oh my goodness, all these acronyms. School of Public Affairs at the University of Texas at Austin. Her vision at Chariot is that all Austin area seniors have access to transportation and can successfully age in place if that's what they wish. So what does MPA mean from the LBJ School of Business or School of, yeah. What does that mean?
It means Masters of Public Affairs. So I don't know if you're looking for something more intuitive on that, but it's a Masters of Public Affairs. So
yeah,
most people who have those degrees either go into government or nonprofit entities.
Excellent. Well, Gretchen, welcome. I know that you probably are very familiar with Tina and the products that they have come out with, and you probably have had chances to talk before in groups like this, but this is our first opportunity to ask y'all some questions. But before we get started, and I got to get to my printer and get my questions, Gretchen, do you want to just talk a little bit about Chariot and Drivus Senior and what's been going on during COVID and how you had to retool and things like that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I'll have to admit it's a little mean to make me go after Tina, who is kind of like, as Cindy said, very much the guru of transportation in town, but I'll do what I can. Chariot, has Cindy said, formerly Drivus Senior Central Texas, provides door-to-door transportation for seniors 60 and over. So we serve that population. We serve a geographic area that includes Lakeway, Dripping Springs, Southwest, South Central Austin, and Elgin. So it's not exactly a contiguous area, but we have we're mainly on the south side of town. We use volunteer drivers for our one-on-one drives, and we have paid drivers that we use for van drives or group rides. During COVID, though, we have really had to kind of rethink that some and have largely used our paid drivers for one-on-one drives using our agency vehicles. And that's because we're easing back into group rides as pandemic restrictions are reduced, but during the gap, we're using our paid drivers to kind of fill in we have really lost a number of our volunteer drivers during the pandemic. Initially, we lost them all, but as we started to gear back in, many have come back, and as vaccinations have become more available and people have had a chance to get vaccinated, we've had a lot more drivers coming back. So that's hopefully we'll be switching soon. We also, in addition to that service, we have the ability to, if we can't fill a ride with a paid driver or one of our volunteers, we have the ability to use third-party entities like Send a Ride and Lyft's concierge service and taxi services. So that's all at our cost. There's never any cost to any of our clients. Let's see, what else can I tell you? During COVID, we also retooled a little bit in terms of adding more, doing more errands and going to food pantries for people so that they don't have to leave their homes. And when vaccines started to become available, we did a lot of vaccine trips, and we actually helped a lot of those people schedule those vaccine appointments. And currently we're doing a reasonable number of booster vaccines, because as you can imagine, with our population being all over 60, and by far most of our clients are over 65. So we're doing quite a bit of that. So that's I think the nuts and bolts of what we do. I'm sure there's a lot more you'd like to know.
So it sounds to me, Gretchen, that you are probably one of the entities that Tina refers to. Is that right, Tina? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you have needs in a particular geographic area, you probably look at, because the Drive as Seniors in general, they have areas that they work in. So there's a couple different, be kind of confusing which one you would reach out to. But so Gretchen is one of the partners, and I loved that you hit on the main thing, which is there is no cost to our older adults when they drive with Drive as Senior. So that's awesome. Let me go ahead. Gretchen, let me ask you another question. What is the role that Chariot plays in addressing transportation issues for seniors? Why did you even come about? Why wasn't this being served through some other entity? I guess just in general, why are you here, do you think?
Well, I guess for that very reason, because nobody else was really doing it. I think our population, our clients vary a lot, but in general, I would say that a lot of them are, they're not able to drive. That's one of our criteria for various reasons. Maybe they have somewhat limited mobility, some problems with sight, with vision or hearing, something that may make it difficult, and maybe they never drove. I grew up in a family where neither my mother, grandmother, or great-grandmother ever drove. So this kind of service would have been great for them if it had existed where they lived. But so our clients may need a little more help. They might use buses and other kinds of transportation, but often they have mobility issues. We don't accept people in wheelchairs. That is very specific, and that's when you call Metro Access. But because that's primarily because our volunteers are not, since we're a volunteer-based program, we don't have volunteers that are equipped or trained to actually handle that kind of access. But we do often have people that really need a little more help. They may not be able to really get to a bus to do they may not be located in the right place, or they may not physically be able to do that. And often we're doing what we call door-to-door service, which really doesn't, even for taxis, even if you had the money to call a taxi, they're not necessarily going to come to the door and help you get into the vehicle. And then when you get back, help you get your groceries back into the house. So we're filling that gap where people who really need a little bit more help. We do have some clients that don't need as much help and really appreciate the kind of one-on-one and the chance to socialize with somebody. So that, that's a big component of what we do, is providing that socialization. We're also able to, in many times, we can match a client and a volunteer and match that when that client needs a ride, the next time we can match them with the same volunteer. We can't always do that. And sometimes they do it on their own. The volunteers have the ability to kind of sign up for what rides they want to do. And they really do look for people that they've worked with before. So that's a real important piece. I'm not sure, did I totally answer your question there? Why we exist? I mean, we exist because there's a need. And the original programs, when they started really about 30 years ago, were very small and often were based with a worship center. So there might be a church or a synagogue that had wanted to kind of match up older people in their community with people who could drive them places. And really the program expanded beyond that to where it is today.
Yeah, so it was just a gap that y'all saw, and it seems like you've had to re-gear and kind of change it up. I know one of the things that you've offered more are the group rides, which, like you said, really helps with socialization, being able to have social opportunities. One of the favorite things that I've seen y'all do is go through the Trail of Life and go through in a bus, experiencing those things you haven't been able to do for years and years and years because of ability to be able to drive through and be in the comfort of your vehicle. Just seems like a dream. So we're so happy that you guys are able to provide that additional service. And like you said, a lot of those relationships turn into lifelong relationships. Those drivers, those volunteers with the elder, they form these relationships that really, that I've seen them be for the entire life of both of them. So it's really exciting to see that. Tina, are there any plans to offer more options and affordable transportation for senior living in rural counties?
Well, that was kind of a question that I was hoping to be asked or answered. So I'm really not sure. I really would hope so, because that's something that I hear is about the seniors that are out in the rural areas that may not necessarily can afford some of the transportation options that come out there. And although, yes, the driver seniors and Chariot, they offer free services, but they may not be able to go, they may not be within their service area. So I was really hoping that maybe someone here on the panel or out in the audience may know of anything that may be coming up, because that's one of my questions, honestly.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the things that Chariot did was they determined that there was a huge need out in the Dripping Springs area. And so they have gone out to that area and they've worked to work with older adults to have them accept this option, because it's new. And so you've got to kind of explain what it is and how it works. Gretchen, how has that been going out in Dripping Springs? And are there other outlying areas like that that you think that you might move to based on your experience in Dripping Springs?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually, I think it's worked out well. It's harder for us. We definitely see a need to hit more rural areas. We're serving Elgin right now. And as you said, we're doing Lakeway and Dripping Springs. What makes a difference for us is where they're going to for medical care. Our sweet spot is providing rides for medical appointments. We do a lot of other things, but the medical one is really important. And it depends a lot on where they need to go. So right now, I don't really have the capacity. If somebody needs to go to San Antonio for medical care, I don't really have the capacity to do that. But if they're coming into Austin, I can do that. With our Elgin group, we also take people to Temple. But among the other Drive a Senior programs, there's a number that really do help in those outlying areas. So Senior Access does Round Rock and Pflugerville and Northeast Austin, and kind of covers some rural areas in there. There's Senior ATX, but they handle Central and West Austin, so they are not so much in a rural area. But the Drive a Senior Northwest does kind of far Northwest Austin. Faith in Action Georgetown serves the Georgetown area. So we have a lot covered, but there's some clear gaps. And one of the things that we're looking to for the next couple of years is to move more to the Southeast. So we're hoping to kind of fill the gap between we're looking to fill the gap between Elgin and South Austin and move into, and this won't happen overnight. So I need to warn people, don't call us tomorrow and say, Gretchen said we could do this, but or that you would serve us, but we're really hoping to move into Del Valle and, Bastrop and Manor areas, or if it's not us, make sure that there's some other program that can provide these services, because I think we feel really, it seems clear to us that while mass transit is really improving in town and will improve a great deal in the next few years, next 10 or 15 years, there's always going to be these gaps, and there's always going to be a need for a lot of this one-on-one services and a more personal approach, so that together we can, get everybody to where they need to be.
We have a question here. It says, would there be a place for churches to be a central dispatch point so that in real time, the best drivers with needed special skills or non-driving volunteers with the right training can be deployed? So that just sounds like if you could have maybe people who were trained a little bit better, or not better, more enhanced, they might be able to help some of these special need drivers. Do you think that's something that you might add, Gretchen?
I think that's, to a large degree, that's kind of something we already do. Most of the private senior programs work closely with congregations and worship providers in their areas, and often some of them are housed in those facilities in local churches. Some of them use those. We all, to some degree, use them as a way to recruit volunteers and clients and kind of match people up. So one of the rides that we do pretty often is people going to church on Sunday. So we work with local parishes to kind of match those people up with somebody. It makes more sense to have them go with somebody who's going to that church.
Yeah.
I would say that, most of the drive a scene programs, that's really was where they started. I think we've just all expanded beyond that to offering a lot of other, working with businesses and corporate partners to get volunteers. I think we're just, at this point, no one thing is going to work. We have to do a lot of different things. And I think Sarita said something about the senior access serves, what did she say?
She says Maynard, Del Valley, and East Austin. And I do have another message, so it's more of just a comment. And then check out our website at chariot.org to see the areas that we serve. And what was the other one?
If you go to, there is a website that you can see like all of the volunteer drive programs. If you go to driveasenior.org, that gives you a map with all of the volunteer drive programs in town. If you need something beyond that, you call Tina. But if you're just looking for one of those volunteer ride programs, you go to driveasenior.org.
Perfect. Okay, got another question here. What are some of the transportation barriers that you all have seen regarding the senior population? It's a great question. So really, wheelchairs has been a barrier. That's one. What are some of the other barriers that you've seen?
For me, I would say, I'm not sure if you all see me. I'm trying.
Oh, we can't see you. I love this. It's like we're a comedy show, in and out.
Okay, well, it's not showing me for whatever reason, and I do apologize. But what I do see are calls that I receive the most are the cost of those services, and just having services out in that area. Those particular areas, those are barriers of seniors that are needing to go to dialysis. I get quite a bit of dialysis calls, and anyone on here may know that those that are going to dialysis is 3 times a week. So if you're using a non-emergency medical transportation provider 3 times a week, twice a day, it's going to get very expensive for them. So I know for a fact that is definitely a barrier for some of the seniors and just those with disabilities. How do you get them to that much needed medical attention that they need?
Yeah, I agree with Tina that wheelchair accessibility is a problem. And that's something I think we're looking at the potential of getting into providing some of those services. I think it'd be limited if we can do it, but we're interested in that. People with disabilities can be an issue. Generally, we've figured out ways to work around that. Usually we're dealing with hearing or visual issues, but and dementia can be somewhat of an issue too. The other barriers that I see have to do more with just, and it relates to what Tina was saying about like dialysis patients that need 3 trips a day, or we have some oncology or a week. We have some oncology patients that are getting regular infusions. Our big problem is just capacity, is finding enough ways. I've been trying to hire more drivers for months now, so I need more paid drivers. I need a lot more volunteer drivers. And it's really just coming up with the capacity. We generally limit our clients to 2 rides a week because we have to kind of try to serve as many of the people who need us as we can. But what we're really seeing is just a huge influx of people. This year, I've already had an increase of about 250 new clients come in. Well, I haven't had near that number of new volunteers come in, not near enough to really even serve that. So to me, the biggest issue is just the need. I suspect language is also an issue. I haven't seen that a lot. I do have some of my service coordinators, and I think this is true for some of the other programs, do have some Spanish speaking people, but finding a Spanish speaking volunteer that can help them is hard. But in general, and I think I saw a couple questions in the chat, we will serve any non-driving, we have an onboarding process for clients. So they can't just call and get a ride on demand. They have to go through our process. It usually only takes about a week, sometimes less, to get them on. But people can live, we serve people who live in homes. We serve people who live in apartments. We have some people that live in senior housing. Usually that's, it can be there's so many different kinds of senior housing. The only housing that we kind of avoid is if they're living in a facility that really provides its own transportation for clients. So in that situation, we usually kind of shy away from those because we know that they really can get, that those kind of facilities can serve them. But really anybody else we don't turn down because of where they're living or what kind of home they have. I believe I actually even had a client that was homeless that was working with us. It was a bit of a challenge, but I think we were somewhat able to meet it. But the big issue, and I think this is probably true for Capital Metro and their programs, is just the demand far exceeds what we can really offer.
Right. And hopefully that will change, because as people get their shots or they feel comfortable driving, they might come back and volunteer more. I know we're all missing out on that social interaction, but some people are still a little bit worried, about the potential for COVID and things like that. So this is another question. Will there be any funded pilot programs that offer transportation to seniors to medical appointments? So Gretchen, I think you can actually talk to funding for medical appointments. Wasn't this something through Medicare that they were trying to get passed?
Oh, I see what you're talking about. It's possible, but to tell you the truth, there's a lot of things. I'm going to have to try to give the simple answer to this. We would love to be able to get Medicare to reimburse us for medical transportation. It's possible, but right now, the way the program is set up, the cost to administer that is much greater than what the reimbursement rate is. So until I think there's some limited cases that we're going to be looking at that. But the way the statutes are written right now, the way the rules and regulations are set up, you have to get all of your drivers certified with the program, and you have to get all your clients pre-certified, and every single ride has to be pre-approved. So until we can figure out, and the reimbursement rate is exceedingly low. So the problem with the way it's set up right now is by the time I go through all those hoops, I've increased the cost of the ride so much that it no longer becomes a reasonable proposition. So until those rules change, or they make it a little bit simpler, that kind of reimbursement isn't available to us. We fund our program, and again, this is similar with the other volunteer drive programs. We get grants and donations. The St. David's Foundation has been very, very generous with all of these programs. There's federal transportation funds that we can access. We're actually looking at accessing more of those for rural areas too. We get donations, grants from other funders. We do a lot of our own. Everybody does their own special events and fundraising. So that's how we're funding them now. But I do think in the future, but I think it's a ways off, that we'll be able to get some kind of reimbursement.
Well, to me, you saying what you go through, this gyration and figuring out how much it costs, and then you finally figure out it's going to cost more than what you would be reimbursed. Probably that's going to be the same for anybody. So I would think that nobody's going to do it because if it doesn't make sense financially.
Yeah, that's why you don't see it anywhere right now. Because that would actually be available to for-profit entities. And I guarantee
Right.
if it was cost effective, they would do it.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying if you've looked at it and it's a no-go financially, and we even have money that we could subsidize, some of that, if that doesn't make sense for a nonprofit, it's for sure not going to to a for-profit. So I guess the way that the bill was written, or
it's federal Medicare.
Federal. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a Medicare. Okay. Gotcha. That's all you got to say. I got you now. Okay. Chariot serves one area of Austin. Oh, we already talked about there's other similar programs. And you would go to driveasenior.org and you can go there and there's a map and you can learn more about that. The number of seniors in Austin is growing. What is your organization doing to address that growth and increased need for services?
What we're basically doing is trying to get really sophisticated about how we approach that. So we're using a lot of the data that we collect through the systems that we use, and are really looking strategically at where we can move, what we need internally to handle more clients, and what that's going to cost. So we're spending a lot of time, and it's kind of boring sounding, but really evaluating our program, looking at those data points, kind of crunching those numbers and figuring out very strategically, what kind of people do we add, where do we need to add staff in order to serve more? How do we get more volunteers in? How many volunteers do we need? How many paid drivers do we need? What all we need? But, so that's a lot of it. And also just really pursuing other means of funding. So we're, really increasing our funding from various sources in order to meet that. It's the nuts and bolts of it.
So we noticed that you are on the Community Advisory Committee for Project Connect. And how does your role on that committee address the age-friendly action plan?
Okay, yeah, and I'm really excited about being on that committee. The Community Advisory Committee for Project Connect is tasked with looking at making sure that there isn't too much displacement and that there's a lot of equity in how they develop that program. So if you're not familiar, the Project Connect program that was voted in, I guess, 2 years ago, whatever, will greatly expand the Capital Metro system. So we'll have light rail going south and north. We'll have lines that go out to the airport. It'll really create a lot more accessibility for everybody. My role on that committee, though, is to really look out for seniors and to really make sure that there's equity in how they design and develop those lines and determine the stations and develop the project so that seniors actually benefit from it too. I think that any of us that work in this arena will tell you there are specific needs that are different than other populations. And so I'm hopeful that by being involved in this project, I can make sure, or that I can help bridge the gap for what seniors will need. And I hope people will let me know, will feel free to use me as a contact to get more information on what's going on there and how that's happening. But our actual task is we've been tasked with, we have $300 million that is what they're calling the displacement funds. And what we're working on is looking at equitable ways to distribute that so that they're looking to use a lot of that for new housing and to mitigate displacement of people along the lines that are built. So I think it's going to be, it's a pretty exciting time to be in Austin. I wish that we had this system now. It's going to take some while to build, but we got to start somewhere. So I do think that in terms of addressing the age-friendly action plan, this is going to be huge.
That it really will kind of do the checkbox and fill out those needs that was determined during the age-friendly action plan. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we've got some people who are talking about the future and some ways that maybe things could be solved. We know we have, I wouldn't say it's a crisis. Are we at crisis mode for transportation for our older adults, would you say? Or are we kind of at the getting to that point that we need to really be, proactive, right?
I don't know how Tina feels about this. I don't think we're at crisis yet, but I think that if we can't gear up and really grow these programs, I mean, honestly, all of the programs that operate like I do need to be doing 2 and 3 times what they're doing right now to really start meeting the needs. So we have to figure out how to really expand. I would say right now, I'm not turning anybody away. But if all of my current clients right now called tomorrow and needed a ride, it would be a little scary. Fortunately, it doesn't always happen that way, but I don't want to get to the place where I do have to ration a lot more than what I'm doing now.
And so it's interesting because you have this kind of ability to where you've got all your clients and then you've got your volunteers, your paid people, and you have to get to this equilibrium. Your problem with hiring is not unusual because we're seeing this all over the city where there's just a huge problem with hiring. If somebody wanted to apply for a job, where would they go? Would they go to chariot.org? Are the jobs posted there, or?
Yeah, now definitely chariot.org. We have any of our openings posted, and I will tell you, because I know from some of the meetings I've sat in with Capital Metro, they're having the same issue. Even with Project Connect, they are struggling to find people to fill. There's a lot of new jobs connected with this whole plan and the growth of the project, and everybody is struggling to find people. And I think that's true with every nonprofit in town too, that I know that's looking for somebody. So I don't know where everybody went, but please come back and work.
Could you please come back? We need you. Well, do you think that it's a problem with a gap in skills, or do you feel like people have the skills, but they're just not applying? They're just choosing to not go back to work right now?
To tell you the truth, Cindy, I think that's beyond my expertise. I have no idea why we can't find people right now. I suspect a lot of it is just still that we're really not through the pandemic yet, and it would be really good to get through it. I think that the pandemic probably created a situation where a lot of people are rethinking about their relationship with work and what that's going to be. But it's really beyond my, you'll have to, maybe that's the next, another panel that you can set up.
I love that. Yes, we have some ideas about some panels, but yes, definitely if there are gaps, then there are people who will help train you. I know AARP has a training program too for people who are looking for work. We're hoping to have them talk about their program too, but for goodness sake, if you want to work, you don't have the skills, there's people who will help train you. Probably the person who's looking for you would pay to train you too, or get your license or whatever it is that you need. I was going to look back through and see if we have any other questions or anything else that we could answer, but it's also a good time for you both just to do a summary and tell us about something that maybe you weren't able to get answered during your time. Gretchen, was there anything in summary that you'd like to say?
Let me pass for a second and let Tina talk. Let me look at my notes real quick.
Okay, great. Tina, was there anything else in summary? We're going to name you the guru of transportation for older adults in Austin, Texas. You have a new title.
Well, thank you. There's definitely a passion there, for the senior community. My own mother is a senior. I look at myself in the future may needing some of these same options, that are out here. So it's a great way to do my part in helping with put some things out here into the community that can help our seniors. So on the topic of any programs that can be funded, I know a couple of years ago, there was a program out there and it was for medical transportation. And there was a certain amount of funding that was there. I can't remember who organized it, but they would call and they would get free transportation to their medical appointments. So I'm wondering if there may be something on the horizon of that nature that may come back in, because a lot of what I see with the senior community is they're on a fixed income. So, and of course, I do refer out to Chariot, I refer out to Drive for Seniors. That's within some of the information that I gather from the individuals that's calling me is how soon do you need this transportation? So I know if they need it today, tomorrow, within a couple of days, I have to refer to the appropriate area or the appropriate organization to help them. But a lot of them can't afford some of these transportation options. And unfortunately, that's what's out there. I don't know of any other outside of the Chariots or of the seniors that offer free transportation or a more reasonable transportation. And I'm not bashing any of them that I use, but if we are providing transportation to seniors, why does it cost so much? You know, I understand you're running a business and that you have to fund that business, the cost, there's your insurance, that, you know, all of that stuff. I understand that. But sometimes it's just kind of heart touching, you know, when they tell me, you know, I can't afford, or I have to get my medicine. I can't afford to spend $60, you know. So there are one or two, you know, that I refer out most, unfortunately, because I know their fees are not as much as others. But I also refer out to like local taxi companies. And if you're within Austin, we also have the senior transportation program, Austin Parks and Rec, but they also have a service area. So they have to be within that area to even use that service. And it's reasonable. It's $3 or $6 round trip. But if they're not within the service area, it can't help, you know. So for me, it's really just, you know, hopefully there's something out there on the horizon that can offer more reasonable transportation or more transportation.
And this is probably a topic that we could sit and come into a room and talk for 8 hours trying to solve. And it's a problem that needs to be solved for sure. I mean, it's a basic need to go to a medical appointment. So it's not like you're going, you know, going to get your hair done.
Exactly.
So yeah, so let's keep the conversation going on different alternative ways that we can help people get to medical appointments that doesn't break the bank. So Gretchen, did you have any final words?
Yeah, there's a couple things that I just wanted to point out that I think are issues that I think this audience in particular should be aware of. One of the things that we're seeing, and this is probably what one of the things I should have mentioned in barriers earlier, is there's been this interesting move towards, I suspect it's a financial thing, but a lot of medical facilities are kind of consolidating. So one of the issues I have, and I'm pretty sure this is a problem for all the drive programs, is that I'll have somebody in far south Austin, they'll end up with a doctor's appointment in Round Rock or far north. And it's like, you know, and I'll even say to them, can you get your doctor to schedule you for something closer? And sometimes they can, but more often than not, they're saying, no, that's the only place they say I can go. You know, that's true with veterans. They have very limited where they can go. And this is a huge issue. And I actually think, and nobody's thinking about it this way, but it's a climate change issue too. We shouldn't, when we have facilities that are close to people, that's where they should be assigned to go. They should not be, it creates this whole, you know, we're wasting resources and we're wasting people's time trying to get them to, you know, I have many trips that are round trip 40 and 50 miles. It's crazy. The other issue that I wanted to mention is that that Tina kind of mentioned on funding. When I look at programs in other parts of the country, they largely get a lot, they get some of the similar funding I get on the federal transportation funds, but they also get city funding. We don't. Austin doesn't fund any of the programs that operate like me. I think there are a few, Elgin does some funding, and I think that I want to say Georgetown maybe, and Senior Access might get some municipal funds, but on the whole, the biggest entity here, Austin, provides no funding for senior transportation with outside of their own programs, which are fairly limited. So I'm just putting a plug in it would be huge if we could access that kind of funding. And then the last thing I want to say is all of us need volunteers. So if you know somebody who would like to volunteer, the trend towards not having more difficulty getting volunteers actually started way before COVID. COVID has just made it 10 times worse. But we really need these programs, the way we can keep it affordable is having volunteer drivers. I mean, sure, I could probably fill every ride with a paid driver, but the cost is going to be astronomical for that. If we can get volunteers, it's huge. And even if they can only do it once a month, that makes a very big difference in the life of these programs and what our clients, the services our clients get. So I just would, you know, I'm putting in the plug, please, 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 if you know anybody that has the time or resources to volunteer, tell them to get in touch with us, that you can go to that driveasenior.org and look at the map, and they can, they should match themselves with a location close to them. But I will warn you that just because you sign up for a program in South Austin or one in, Central Austin, you're probably going to be driving people, most people go to the local grocery store, but often medical appointments can be much farther. So anyway, that's my big plug.
Great summary. Thank you so much. It was great to have you on today. And it was important, I think, to give an update about the, we've come a far way in the past couple of years in transportation for older adults. And a lot of it has to do with the age-friendly action plan and the ability of nonprofits and for-profits and government entities to help implement portions of the plan. So we're so thankful that you all were on today's panel, and we look forward to hearing more about exciting things that y'all do. And we hope to see all of you next time. We hope that you'll be able to come to our age-friendly work forums or to come to our Aging and Innovation Summit. It's going to be super, super interesting. We are asking for donations. You don't have to give a donation, but we are asking for donations, and we are looking for sponsors too. So if you'd like to sponsor that event. But thank you for your time, everybody, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you, Cindy.
Bye.